Welcome to the Friday edition of Juan's World, and we're in the middle of Lent. Sunday is going to be what's called mid-Lent Sunday, the fourth Sunday in Lent, and that Sunday is also called in England, and the Church of England in particular, Mothering Sunday. And in the 20th century and beyond, Mothering Sunday has meant Mother's Day in England. But that's not always what Mothering Sunday meant. So let's talk about that. Now, there's a lot of things about the period of Lent that are misunderstood by people who are not part of the Anglo-Catholic tradition, or not Christians at all. I mean, they just have this sense that Lent is this period before Easter when you give up something. And I remember when I was a kid, that was the going question, like, what are you going to give up for Lent? Well, historically, people gave up meat for Lent. It's very simple. And they also gave up various other animal products, but chiefly meat. And of course, in the Catholic tradition, Catholics used to not eat meat on Fridays, which is gave the long-standing tradition in England of eating fish and chips for dinner on Friday because they didn't eat meat. And when I had school lunches in my grammar school in England, we always had a non-meat dish on Fridays. Now, when Lent comes around, the church had a whole series of prohibitions of things that you couldn't eat on fasting days, and meat was a big one. So you didn't have to think about what you're going to give up. I mean, that's what you were going to give up. But there's a very important exception in here. The fasting period in Lent is for 40 days. 40 days is a very convenient number, biblical number for a long time. Like Jesus fasted in the desert for 40 days, and that's what gives us the 40 days. Well, how come that from Ash Wednesday, which is the first day of Lent, to Easter Sunday, it's 47 days? Something wrong there. Well, that's because you don't understand that Sundays are always feast days throughout the year. So that even if you are fasting deliberately on the 40 days of Lent, you break your fast on each Sunday, and there's 7 Sundays in Lent, so 47 days minus 7 is 40. Now, the church gets a little fuzzy about this and says, well, break your fast, but you can't go crazy. But you can just indulge a little bit more on Sundays, because every Sunday is a feast day. And historically, of course, every Friday was a fast day. All right, so that's sort of a little bit of the issue. So the idea that instead of giving up meat for Lent, you give up something that you value, um, is a kind of penance, because you've sinned for the whole year, and so you have to do penance and with contrition for the 40 days of Lent, and it will purify you, theoretically. Well, I always give up something for Lent, something important to me. I'm not going to tell you what I give up each year or what I'm giving up this year, because it's not relevant. It's just my own particular Presbyterian version of discipline. I remember my Presbyterian minister during Lent one year saying in a sermon in the congregation, those Anglicans over there, they decide that they're going to give up something, and so like I'm going to give up sweeties for Lent, and then the kiddie says to Mum, "Look at all the money I've got because I didn't eat sweeties for Lent." In other words, he was saying they're giving up something sweet for Lent, but then they're saving money, and so it sort of balances out. And it says, but see, we're Presbyterians, we're austere 365 days of the year. So it was just terrible. But anyway, so we're in mid-Lent, and so this Sunday coming up is called Mothering Sunday. Now, the reason it's called Mothering Sunday doesn't have anything to do with your biological mother. Mid-Lent Sunday was considered to be a holiday for servants. I'm going to say going back to the Middle Ages, but I really haven't checked it up, so don't count me on that. But typically, servants had to work on Sunday. Work hard because like they've got to prepare Sunday dinner for the fancy lord and lady of the manor or whatever, and so like they might get some time off on Monday, but they didn't get any time off on Sunday. Didn't get any time off on Christmas Day. I mean, that was the day when they had to work the hardest because they had to make the Christmas dinner and all the festivities and everything. They got the day after off, Boxing Day. So normally they would get a little bit of a breather on Mondays. But on Mid-Lent Sunday, they were granted the day off. But they had a certain kind of, I guess, admonition that it was a day to go back to your mother church. Now, your mother church is the church where you were baptized. And I'll see if I've got a picture. I'm not sure. I've probably got one somewhere, but here, if I do, is me in my mother church, which is St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church in Buenos Aires, where I was baptized. That's my mother church. Well, people in England on Mothering Sunday could go back to their mother church. They went mothering. Mothering in this case means your mother church. But of course, when you go back to your mother church, you also go back to the village where you were born, because that's where you got baptized. So, and who lives in the village where you were born? Your parents. So of course you go to church. I mean, that was a strict rule that people had to abide by. They had to go to church every Sunday. Although that one's also one that I don't really quite grasp, and I've never been able to understand historically, because when you go to a village church and you look around inside, there's not enough room in the church for the whole village to go to church on a Sunday. And in fact, that's why typically when people got married, they got married in the church porch, not in the church itself, because the congregation could gather in the churchyard around the church porch, and there was enough room for them outside the church. There wasn't enough room for them inside the church. So this admonition that you had to go to church every Sunday couldn't have possibly been realized. I mean, there must have been some way in which they took turns, or I mean, obviously they could have multiple services, but they didn't seem to do that. So I don't really know. But anyway, so you were admonished to go to your mother church on mid-Lent Sunday, and in the process, you visited your village where you were born, and you visited your family. So you got to spend some time with your parents, not just with your mother, but with your mother and your father. So Mothering Sunday could be thought of as Parent Day, if you like, not just Mother's Day. But by the 20th century, certainly, I think in fact by the 19th century, it had turned into a Mother's Day. It had shifted from being a day to honor both parents to honoring just your mother, and it could be nothing more complicated than the name. You know, like it's mothering. Okay, so I'll honor my mother. You know, instead of shifting from honoring my mother church to honoring my mother. And none of this ever had any impact in the United States, because the United States really didn't have a lot of Episcopalians or Church of England settlers, colonialists. So by the 19th century, they didn't have Mothering Sunday, so they didn't have a Mother's Day, so they invented a different one later in the year. See, Mothering Sunday shifts around. It shifts with Easter. It's a movable feast. So if Lent is early, Mothering Sunday is early. If it's late, Mothering Sunday is late. So that's how we get this English Mother's Day. And I will honor my mother for this day. Here she is. If I can again find a nice photo of her. She died a long time ago, but I still like to honor her on Mother's Day. There is a song you can sing, which I'm not going to. Again, if I can find it. I did have a version of me singing it once upon a time, and I put it up on the cloud somewhere, and of course can't find it. So that's how much I honor my own singing. But one of the things that they did on Mothering Sunday was they brought a simnel cake to Mother to honor her. And a simnel cake is a very special kind of fruit cake, very much like a wedding cake or a Christmas cake or a 12th cake. Like heavy fruit cakes are the dominant feature of ceremonial days in England. So here is a simnel cake. It can be made for Mothering Sunday. It can also be made for Easter Sunday. Usually has a layer of marzipan on the top with 12 marzipan balls representing the 12 apostles, I guess. I mean, again, I don't know, but it's a fruit cake with it's not completely covered in marzipan and royal icing like a Christmas cake. It's just topped with marzipan with a little bit of jam underneath, and then the marzipan balls on top, and you get the baker to bake that where you live, and then you take it as a gift to your mother on Mothering Sunday. There's Mothering Sunday. I wish you a happy Mothering Sunday. I wish you a happy weekend in general. Please like, please subscribe, and I will be back again on Tuesday. I think I've been very, very busy. Among other things, I am buying a rice farm in the north of Cambodia. Don't even begin to question it. There'll be a video at some point, but right now I'm just getting my head around financing this deal. So like and subscribe, and see you Tuesday.